This year, the Rocky Horror Picture Show celebrates its 45th anniversary, and it's showing no signs of stopping its tenure as the longest running theatrical release in film history. Its history as a midnight movie cult icon has touched multiple generations, from the old schoolers like Dory Hartley and Sal Piro to the Shadowcast troops of today. And the film continues to inspire the outcasts of the world with its mantra, "Don't dream it, be it." We are honored here at Sinister Creature Con to have hosted our guest on multiple occasions, and I'm especially honored to introduce our guest who brings out the asshole in all of us, Mr. Barry Bostwick.
Hello, hello, hello. I think I've said this before, but from now on, I'm going to be called His Ass Holiness.
Oh, okay.
Because we've reached 45 years, and I think by that time, you know,
you've always been royalty in my mind. So.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah. I was talking with Meatloaf yesterday, and he said, well, it's not 45 years. It's actually 46 years. And he's right. It's 46 years since we actually shot it, but 45 years since we were, put out into the earth for people to hate. And then people to love.
And people to love, yes.
Yeah, finally, but they didn't care for it too much in the beginning.
No, I've read a lot of history of it. Unfortunately, I was not yet alive at the original portion, but just almost there. So I've done a lot of reading up on the original history of Rocky Horror, and I've been involved in Rocky Horror for many, many years. Now, just how many times do you think you've seen Rocky Horror, Barry?
Oh gosh, not that much, maybe 30, 40 times, I mean, if I had a nickel for every time, no, I still would be poor. Or for every time I saw it. But I mean, the fan base, so the people who the shadow cast and this and that, when they come up to me and say, "Well, I've seen it 500 times, 600 times," we know we've done something really idiotic or very special.
Bit of column A, bit of column B. Maybe little both.
Yeah. No, but I mean the fact that it's affected so many people's lives over so many years, and I like to sort of think that the there's a light over the Frankenstein place. I think I've said this before, maybe not to you, but to me it's the light of that we all have to keep lit. For that darkness in everybody's life that needs to be always lit up, and the sort of self-examination and the self-acceptance, I think that the light shows, and the tolerance for the differences in all of us, and I think that's really what the movie's ultimately about, other than just sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
That actually kind of led right into my next question,
Okay.
because Rocky Horror really has become a safe place for people of all different types of backgrounds, different religions, sexuality, gender. Your role as Brad really made space for queer and questioning folks everywhere, and in theater and in film. Did you ever see Rocky Horror blowing up the way that it did?
No,
or was
no,
just
I don't
total...
think any of us did. We just thought we were making a little movie. We thought we were making Sound of Music for 1975. It was like the Wizard of Oz or the Wizard of Odd. Really, was basically what we were making. We were a reflection of its time, of what was going on theatrically and in rock and roll, and just in this sort of garage element of let's just do it right here. Let's just make it with basic instruments and basic chord structures, and So I think that Brad Majors has. I always feel that he's been very important. I think if people who know this movie culturally, they would accept their straightness in a way, and then say, well, yeah, but Brad at the end sort of goes over the bridge, and I'm not quite sure how far over the bridge he goes, but I've always wondered, trying to figure out where would Brad be now, other than working for the Trump administration.
always wondered quite, what happened before Once in a While. The faded song that got pulled out.
Well, you know what happened. I mean, look at the shadows. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it was Tim Curry being very gentle and initiating me into a new life, into a new experience, and I think one that Brad had was sort of cottoned to after a while, and we'll see what happens then. I
How do you
yeah.
feel about the impact that you in part have helped with so many different outcasts finding their home, finding their unique family through these shadowcast performances and what have you?
Well, my fear right now is that they will lose interest because of the whole COVID thing, and because they don't have a place to go every Friday night or Saturday night, that they will, find something else to fill up their lives, and but that doesn't make the fact that the family that they've created over all these years less important. And I think that that's probably, in many ways, kept a lot of these people maybe sane during this whole COVID, outbreak, because of they have these friends, and they have this mutual love for this one wonderful theatrical experience, and I'm what was it that they were saying? They were making a movie, of the movie of the Shadowcasts. What was it called? Rocky Horror Saved My Life.
Yes,
Yeah, you've
yes.
heard of that. It hasn't been released yet, right? I don't think it's been finished.
I have not seen it yet. No.
No, I think there at one of the conventions, maybe it was the 40th, they showed a bit of it in New York, and it's really good. I mean, it just shows you how important this has been to so many people, the Shadowcast all over the world. And I think one of the problems with the documentary is that there's so much information, so many people who want to talk about it and share their lives in that way. Whether it was just the joy of it, or also just the fact that it has saved a lot of people's lives, because they have realized that they're not alone in the world in terms of how they think, feel, or react to each other.
I can certainly attest to that, as I have
Really?
been involved for many, many years myself. I've been involved since 1995. So
95. That's
yes.
great. And
I
have
have.
you been in a cast itself?
Oh yes, yes. Been directing for the past 7 or 8 years now. So yeah, just
And what have you
absolutely
been
love it.
doing? What have you been doing during this whole COVID thing? Have you just been staying focused with other people, or?
Been staying in contact. We honestly, we've noticed that there's drive-in movie theaters are starting to show Rocky Horror next weekend, and so we're trying very hard to get the local drive-in theater to allow us to perform at that theater.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
do an
doing.
open air performance of it.
I'm actually showing up at 4 or 5 of them this month and next month.
Oh, that's awesome.
Drive-in theaters in Middletown, New York, and New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, and this next weekend, where am I? I'm in Middletown, New York this next weekend, and then I go to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and it's going to be interesting. We'll be doing some signings and meeting the fans and this and that, and I don't know if they'll ever see me. I'm going to be behind so much plastic.
Well, they have to keep you nice and safe.
Yeah, well, but that's one of the things that's always attracted me to the Rocky Horror is that there's a lot of hugs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of love. There's a lot of touching. There's a lot of it's just wonderful, And now all of a sudden I'm going to be 6 feet away from everybody. It's going to be quite weird.
It's definitely been a tough time for the Rocky Horror cast for sure.
Right.
we had major plans for our Halloween show for this year. Unfortunately, it will not be happening, of course, but we have the same major plans for next year. So I can assure you that at least in Sacramento, California, we're going to keep Rocky alive. That's for damn sure.
Keep it alive. Keep it alive. It's too important. It's too important. Not only
I agree
socially and and all of that, but just so it's just too important that we don't lose this momentum. 45 years. Can you call it momentum for 45 years? But yes, for another 45 years.
It also feels like it goes in waves, as I've noticed over the years. It seems like every time we get near one of those 5-year periods, that it seems to topple over again. It's like it's weighted on one side.
Well, because what are we on, our third generation now?
Oh, yes.
So you probably...
I'm teaching people half my age how to do the time warp. So.
Are you really?
Yes.
I never learned. Brad never did the time warp.
That's true. That's true.
People say, well, can't you do the time warp? I said, no, I think it's a jump to the left, but half the time I go, it's a jump to the right. I don't know. I can do the Madison. I have learned that over the years, but...
Worthy skill.
Yeah, really. It comes in very handy. Yeah.
We've seen some pictures popping up over the years of different things that happened on the set, such as like the Easter egg hunt. Things of that nature.
I don't remember the Easter egg hunt.
Oh, there's actually a kind of a famous picture of Richard O'Brien sitting on Frank's throne, and beneath the throne you can see an egg that was forgotten during the Easter egg hunt, and that was one of the things that we as fans kind of picked up on. And I was wondering if you have any other memories that are really, your fondest memory of that film, of your time during that.
When is Easter? What month is Easter?
Generally, it's March or April. Depends.
When did we make this movie?
That was around
October, November.
Yeah. So I don't know why
that egg would be very stinky.
Yes, it would be.
By the time it would be underneath. I have a feeling that somebody was just playing a joke, and maybe if you look around, you'll find other sort of eggs around the set. But I don't believe it was an egg from actual Easter egg.
Well, you heard it here first, fans.
Well, because I'm totally unaware of it. I mean, I sat on that throne once. I had a sort of a bunch of pictures taken when I was right after the floor show, and I was sitting on the throne, and I'm going to have to go back and check and see if there's an Easter egg underneath that throne.
We'll have to pull out that picture and show you. We'll circle it for you.
Well, what other things happened that I have no idea happened on this set?
Well, I'm sure that you know about Susan Sarandon getting sick, getting ill from being in the pool.
We never stopped hearing about that. We heard about that a lot, but well, we all probably were sick in some way, but I think she got pneumonia, or she went home. I think she got it when she I don't remember actually her being that sick on the set.
Mm-hmm.
But I know when she got home, she was seriously ill, according to her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I never talked to her after that, really. We finished the movie, and that was it,
Yeah, and that leads into kind of my next part as well. Sinister Creature Con, we've actually hosted Nell Campbell in the past multiple times, and Patricia Quinn. And you seem to have a fantastic relationship with your Rocky co-stars. How does it feel when you get to experience this 45-year-old project with others all over again at these conventions? Like, who's your favorite co-star to be paired up with? Who have you kept in contact with over the years? Who have you not talked to?
We do conventions occasionally with Nell and Pat and Meatloaf. I love being with Meatloaf too, because he has a lot of stories, and he's willing to always tell them. Pat is a talker, and Pat is like the historian of Rocky Horror, not only because she was in the stage show, but also she was in the movie. And so if we ever have a question like, well, what happened, and where was this, and why did that happen? she always is the one we go to, and Nell is the sharper kind of one-liner kind of gal, and she is. It was a plethora of personalities, and I enjoy every moment with them because it's, and we've seen each other quite a bit over the last 4 or 5 years, more certainly than we did the first 30 years, because just wasn't that aware of them. Everybody's in some part of the world, Pat's in London and Nell's in Sydney, and I've been all over the United States, and Meatloaf was touring for so long, and Tim, we've been seeing Tim a couple of times a year in the last 3 or 4 years. And
it's been fantastic having him out at some of the conventions.
Have you seen him at one? Have you been?
I have not had the honor of meeting Tim.
Oh yeah, what a great guy. I mean, he is so witty and so smart and so funny, and it's just tragic what's happened to him with the stroke and all that. But he is. He's still out there. He's still meeting the fans, and he still loves it. And I think it's one of the things I think that's keeping him alive is the fact that he's got this family behind him that loves him, and we love him too. And because he's, without Tim, there wouldn't be a Rocky Horror Picture Show. There wouldn't have been a Rocky Horror Show. I mean, he just ate up the material and spit it out on the stage. I saw him first on stage in LA, and that's what got me interested in doing the movie. I saw it and I thought, my God, this is so dynamic, so fresh, so original, so exciting, and so sexy, and and all that.
Did you feel strange at all being thrust into this world with all of these people who had been doing it for years in London and Los Angeles and what have you? People who have been performing the roles already.
Yeah. I mean, well, it was just, we shot it in 5 weeks, so we really didn't get a chance to get to know them that well, because it was just damn hard work. From the moment Susan and I and Meatloaf got off the plane from LA or New York, it was work, pre-record this and that, and then we were up every morning at 5 because we had to drive out to the studio, which was about an hour and a half out of the city, and out of London at the Bray Studios, and then drive back, and then get 6 hours sleep and go back and do it. It was a low budget movie, and it was a labor of love for pretty much everybody who was there. And the whole experience was fresh to me. I'd never been to London. I've never really been out of the States. So I was treated in a way, sort of like Brad Majors, but I was just sort of straight American young guy who didn't really know his way around, and probably was a bit straighter than everybody else, and I think it worked well for the movie. I mean, I didn't become close with anybody. Tim was probably the most inviting and personality-wise for me, and but you didn't have time to hang out. You didn't have time to even go for a drink at the bar or at the pub. It was work. And by the time we were done, everybody was rushing off to Christmas, or I think it was Christmas, yeah. And and the last month, the last couple of weeks, I mean, it was just miserable. It was raining. It was cold, and everybody was just trying desperately not to get ill. And,
yeah.
And I was just spending all my time at flea markets in London. I fell in love with the flea market scene, and on my day off, I would go to Piccadilly. I forget the name of the flea markets now, but
Did you find anything specific that you bought that you still have to this day?
I bought a couple of watches, like that were told to me that they were, original antique watches, and then I got home and realized it's crap. That I like every tourist in every country, I had been taken.
Hornswoggled.
Yeah, I was hornswoggled by the much smarter European personalities. But no, I at that time I probably came back with suitcases full of everything. From anything that was unique and interesting to me, whether it was a kitchen thing or a bread plate or something. And I bought a lot of little, Tim had on, as you know, on his jacket all those little
The
insignias,
buttons
and stuff. And so I started collecting those when I was there, because that was the hip thing to have, at that time. And no, I was just I was agog with the freshness and newness of the place, and the last day of shooting, which was for me, I think it was the last scene where we're crawling around in the mud, and they finally said, cut. I started crying. It had been such a unique and interesting experience for me, and I had come to really have great affection for all those people, even though I didn't know who the hell they were.
Well, pulling back more to the modern day, you've been to a lot of conventions now, and you've had a huge amount of fan meetups at these events.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific weird fan moment that you can share with us?
Hmm. I was talking about this yesterday with somebody. There's always a story of, well, what was the weirdest thing you had to sign, on a body part, and it was always like somebody, well, it was the thigh, it was the breast, it was, somebody wanted me to sign his upper arm, and he was going to have it tattooed. And I think I was just in a shitty mood that day. And I signed his arm, and I think I signed from the shoulder down to the elbow, my whole signature. I thought, the guy's never going to do this. Well, he came back to me later, and he had tattooed my entire signature on his whole upper arm. And I thought, wow, what an asshole I really am. That just shows you what an asshole I am, that I would take advantage of a fan that way. But the other day I was at Lowe's. You know what Lowe's is? It's one of those things. And a lady, a woman who worked in the loading department, she had all of our tattooed faces, on her body, on her arms and stuff, and brilliantly done. I've seen some amazing tattoos of our faces on people's bodies, and I'm always in awe of,
that must be surreal to see your own face on somebody else.
Yeah, and so well done, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was just a crappy little caricature, but no, I mean, these are very lifelike, and so I respect all the fans who want to go that distance, and get more than just the lips, on their thighs or something.
Maybe I need to get a pair of tidy whities or something and have you sign it like my pair of tidy whities that are hanging on the wall.
Did you buy my tidy whities from me?
I had them gifted to me by one of your handlers when we were doing the Stockton show. Krista.
Krista, sure.
Yeah, she gifted me a pair of tidy whities, and you'd sign my name on it and everything.
Oh, how wonderful! Yeah, it is. Years ago, at the Tiffany Theater in L.A., I think probably about 10 years into when the movie was released, there was a shadowcast there, sort of a famous West Coast shadowcast at the Tiffany Theater, and they invited me down there one night, and I hadn't really experienced that whole thing, and they called me up on stage, and they gave me a gold record. The album had gone gold. Mm-hmm. And I knew sort of this was going to go on, but I thought, well, what can I give them? So I found a pair of my underwear from the movie. It could have just been an old pair of underwear. I don't know. And and I signed it and I framed it to the Tiffany Theater. And then 20 or 30 years later, I thought to myself, That's a good marketing scheme. I'll sell my underwear, and sign it to people.
And when you look for the pictures, all I see is pictures of people holding their underwear up right next to you, very
I know,
happily.
yeah, I know. My wife is not so happy with that. She's never said something that she always like. Do you really have to show your underwear?
Well,
You know,
yes.
I go, come on. This is it's a part of a person's career that I'm very happy with, and it's just a part of my career. Uh, it's probably the most fun part of my career, to be honest with you, to meet people like yourself and to know them and get to know them over the years, and then I'll go back and do some serious little movie or TV show or something. But then I'll go out and do a Rocky Horror thing, and it'll lift my spirits. I got to tell you, every time I sign a pair of underwear to somebody, I become a new man.
Speaking of other projects, one of your more recent roles that you did brought you into the world of Terrence Zdunich's dark musicals. You did Alleluia, Devil's Carnival. Can you tell us a little bit about your role as the Watchword?
Darren, who made that, who was the writer, I guess he's the writer-director, he said, will you come and do this movie? And I know you don't have a lot to do, but you got one song. I said, but when we make the sequel to it, you'll be the star of it. And I think he said that to everybody because he got a lot of talented people to do that movie. And I'm sure they all think that if there's a third one, they'll be the star of it. Well, there hasn't been a third one. But I swear to God, it was one of the funnest experiences I've had. And I worked for Darren a couple of times on a Halloween movie and something else. And he's very, very creative. And Terrence is so talented. But I keep on saying to Terrence, I say, would you listen to some Monkey albums? Please. and come up, you got to come up with the hit song. And he just won't do it. That's not the way his mind works. His mind is very intellectual and serious, and
It definitely comes through in his musical style. It's very abstract and dark, and
that means he won't make a nickel in show business.
He's carving his own way.
Yeah, but I saw him at a convention a few years ago, and we did a Q&A, and I loved it.
It was actually one of ours.
Oh, was it really?
Yes.
Oh, and did we do the Q&A together there?
Yes.
Oh,
and I asked you a question in regards to the fact that you had auditioned for part in Repo, the genetic opera.
Repo. Yeah. And they didn't give me the part.
Yes.
They didn't give me the part. And and I auditioned walking around the pool table, I think, at their office or something. And but that's okay. But then this thing came along, and it was the Watchword. All I remember is Darren saying, Darren's his name, right?
Yes, Darren Lynn Bausman. Yes.
Yeah, that's right, Darren Lynn Bausman. I just remember him saying, "Go bigger, go bigger." And I spent my whole life trying not to go big, from all my Broadway stuff where you go big because you have to carry it all the way to the back of the house. And it took me 30 years to probably not go big. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden he's going, go bigger, go bigger. And when we recorded the song, I was just I've never been so outrageous in singing a song. Every word had a different inflection and went up and down. And I tried to bring so much, go bigger. Can you give me more? And I gave him what I thought was one of the worst performances I'd ever given. But when you finally filmed it and you saw, wait a minute, it fits the whole style of the musical, and it was, I love that show. I don't know why they haven't been able to not only make another one, but why that one didn't take off. I know there was always some internal problems with the producer people and the people who made the album and this and that. And that's always that's always the risky part of these independent films is that at some point the director, writers lose control over it. And
Hmm.
I know that Terrence and Darren, they went out on the road and tried to get people involved that way. And I went to a couple of dates, and the fan base was so enthusiastic, and and the album is really good, as you know. I mean, I think that album, that music in that album, and all the performances are fabulous. But you're the only person who's talked about it in 6 months to me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's I know it's I get more people talking about FDR American Badass than I do with that movie. But
I sat down and watched it again today just to refresh my mind on it. And I was just so amazed at all of your makeup and how you managed to make it work for you rather than against you when you were emoting, because you just have such an expressive face, and
uh,
it can be
it's
difficult.
called overacting is what it's really called. Yeah, but no, I think that was I don't know how he would I don't know how he would have created another whole movie around the watchword, but what an interesting character.
Hmm.
I love doing him. Um, and the pictures, yeah, there was a lot of interesting makeup too. I'm one of the first times I've ever really been lost behind a facade. So it gave me the freedom to really be larger than life.
You also you used an awful lot of had an awful lot of makeup when you were playing the demon, Mr. Abandon in Tales of Halloween. What
Hmm.
was it like doing that with all of
That
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 extra
was
makeup?
3.5 hours of hideous makeup but I think we only shot one day on that. So I only had to do it. Uh, and I look back at the pictures and I realize how brilliant that makeup was. How and again I was lost behind this mask of terror or terror for me. I mean, it was. Uh, Seldom does an actor, a sort of leading, older leading man actor get the opportunity to play those kind of character parts. We're always like you know, I always get the young girl, or now I just have I just did a series called The Pot Winds that's going to be on Amazon Prime. We just did eight episodes of it. Just finished it, and Kevin Sorbo, you know who Kevin is,
Hmm.
plays my son in it, and it's three generations of this family comedy, uh, and again, I played like an old hippie. I played like a guy who's still in his 1963, sort of like who I really am. If you talk to my friends, I so but again, back to the makeup. So I was saying that you don't usually get a chance to do that. To get that kind of freedom. And so I'm looking forward to the next thing that Darren asked me to do, and I'm going to ask him for more makeup.
So, Darren, if you're watching, give Barry a call. He's waiting for you.
Yeah. We talk occasionally. Always, Darren is one of these guys that has like 20 different ideas cooking at the same time.
Yeah.
And they're all good. I mean, they're all good. And he's always making something. He's always doing something. Have you ever met him? Do you know him?
I have one time there was a showing of I believe we watched Devil's Carnival
Hmm.
out at the Colonial Theater, which is our home theater. So
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
I did get the opportunity to meet him and Terrence at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Great guys. Great guys. We were out. We were doing something. I think I went and did something with them. We were all staying at this little motel somewhere, and I remember about midnight one night, the alarms went off. All the fire alarms went off, and we had to clear out of the hotel. And as I went outside, I saw them giggling on the side, and apparently what they had done was thrown a stink bomb in each other's rooms, and it set off the smoke alarm. And that was the thing that amused them. This whole tour is that they would always be throwing stink bombs at each other. But they activated the entire fire department of this town
Oh
because
goodness.
they were just screwing around with stink bombs. It was like rock and roll, wasn't it? You know, I love this guy.
So over the years, you performed in just a ton of different productions, different movies, TV shows. Which medium are you? Which medium is your favorite out of all of those different possibilities? What do you prefer the most to do?
Well, I mean, I make a living doing television mostly, um, I like the independent film scene. And I do a lot of Hallmark movies just because that there's always a Christmas movie that I'm in somewhere, you know, in a Hallmark or Lifetime. I didn't play Santa Claus this year in anything, and usually I've done a Santa Claus by the time this time of the year is rolled around, because you do all those Christmas movies in July and August, you know,
Mhm.
like in Louisiana, where you know they're making fake snow out of Lux soap flakes and stuff. But Yeah, so I didn't do any Christmas movies this year. That doesn't mean there won't be a lot of them on, because all the
Oh, they
ones that
play them all the time.
oh yeah, now they're playing them in July. I don't get it, you know. I mean, I get it because they give me a few bucks, you know, in residuals. But uh, I like television just because it's quick. You're in, you're out. You you can usually you have a lot of still have a lot of creative freedom, you know. Um, but not so much. But in independent films, you really have creative freedom. But I like a strong director. I like people with a clear point of view, and then I come in and just mess around with them.
So going back to one of the TV shows of your past,
Yeah,
Spin City, you were on that for 6 whole seasons, the
yeah,
entire life of the show. And you starred with Michael J. Fox. Do you have
right.
any stories of that history, stories from those days?
You know, I just remember the audition with Michael. Everybody was auditioning for the part of the mayor, and after my first audition, I realized how short he was. And so I thought during my final audition I would lean on something or sit, because I thought maybe, oh man, he's going to be, you know, I'm 6'4", I'm going to tower over this guy as talented as he is. Uh, then they gave me the part, and I realized that what they really cast me for was because we were, you know, we had the comedy, you know, size difference, and 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 he never said anything about it other than the fact that he was, you know, I mean, my stories about Mike are some of them are pretty sad because of his situation, you know, and I have a tendency. I was saying this to my wife the other day. I said I have a tendency to remember the bad times and not the good times. You know, and I don't know, maybe because I don't learn from the good times, I only learn from the bad times. You know, and Mike was struggling from the end of the first season on, and nobody really knew what the problem was, and you know, things were being held up, the shooting was being held up, and he just was sort of out of sorts, and but what what he his life energy, that man, he's just, it's so extraordinary, and his intelligence as an actor, and it's just as a human being, it's so extraordinary. And if you've read any of his books, and just the fact that how he has handled the Parkinson's disease, and his foundation, and how much money he's made to find the, you know, the cure for all of this, and finding the cure for so many other associated diseases. And I think of all the sort of, if you were going to give money to something like this, I would give it to the Michael J. Fox Parkinson's Foundation, because I know that Mike will put that money in the right place, in the right hands, in the right researchers, and the right medical situations. Uh,
A
and
donation, you could certainly trust that the money is getting to where it's
it's not all just going to go to people working in the office,
right.
And he is he's a sweet guy. I don't talk to him much anymore. He's so busy and he's always traveling around and he always is. But I do keep up with other people in it. Alan Ruck and he and I probably talk every week sometime. And he's on that new show Succession, and he's that thing is just eating up television. Succession keeps winning all the awards, and I'm very jealous of his career.
Speaking of awards, something that people might not know about you is that you actually have a Tony and a Golden Globe. And you did your time on Broadway for sure. You did all of your time on the stage. But if you could pick one role on Broadway that out of any show, what would you want to play?
Wow, of any show?
Of any show.
Well, I created that part of Danny Zuko in Greece back in 1970 or 71, and I got to tell you that was what a rush. I mean, we were all just so young and I think energetic and just loved that show. They're now putting a book together, and everybody's trying to come up with stories from every cast that's ever done it around the world, and Tom Moore, the director, is assembling all of these stories of people what it was like on the road, what it was like here, there, how did they approach characters and how did it affect their lives. And Tom keeps emailing me going, when are you going to give me your stories? And I keep on saying to him, I don't remember a goddamn thing. That was 50 years ago. I don't remember. Like you said, well, give me some funny stories. And I go, I can't remember any funny stories. I don't remember things like that. And but so after we get off the air tonight, I'm going to have to go in. And my next thing is I've got to sit down and figure out what happened in 1971. That would be
jog that memory.
yeah, and and he's tried to punch me into like, well, when you did the scene in the drive-in movie, and you came up with all this business, and then everybody copied you. And I just remember one thing. I mean, I remember that during the actually final audition, during the scene in the car, I couldn't get my ring off. I couldn't get the ring off. And I went like this and put it to my hair and got the grease from the hair. And then it slid off. And then I hit her. And I remember I did that during the audition. And then that just sort of stayed in the show.
Yeah, that definitely did stay. Because I do remember in the film, even there, they did that. So,
oh, well, John stole everything I did. What the hell? He was in the touring company with me. He was playing Duty in the first national tour that I did for 3 or 4 months, and he was Duty. He was another character in. So John and we had the same manager at the time. We were close friends, and I never felt bad about him getting the movie. First of all, so many of us by that time were in our late 20s, and he was just a hotshot, young, sexy, talented kid who was ready to burn up the world, and he really did. But again, everything he did in the movie, I created.
Well, I think we're about to wrap this up, but I did want to give you one last opportunity. You mentioned the show that you just finished for Amazon. But do you have any other projects that you've worked on recently that we should keep an eye out for?
You'll have to check my IMDb page because I never remember anything that I've done or what's coming out or the COVID thing has really slowed an awful lot of show business down. And we were one of the few shows that we were actually shooting during this whole thing, and we had to have COVID tests every 3 days. The whole
Wow.
cast, the whole crew, and if anybody proved positive, we were shut down. And we were in Riverside, California, shooting for 5 weeks, and I was just astonished that it was a young crew, and everybody was pretty much away from home, and nobody got sick out of 30 or 40 people. And because I had warned them in the beginning, I said, if you get sick, you're screwing up my whole life because I got 2 kids in college.
Hmm.
So don't go out and screw around at bars and come back testing positive because I'll hate you for the rest of my life. And nobody did. And so but it was very strange. I got to tell you, show business isn't a lot of fun behind a mask. You know,
I can imagine
you
that
know,
that is
I never
definitely
knew what
something.
anybody. I never knew what the crew people looked like because they never took their masks off. I mean, I only knew the girls because of their legs. And I recognized them by their legs. But the DP, the director of photography, and the prop guys and all that never saw them with their masks off for 5 weeks because the minute we walked on set, they took your temperature and then you had to go and put your man. Yeah, it was the strangest thing. I didn't. I don't know
Well,
what else I've done. You'll have to tell people about what I've done. I'm just
well, we'll definitely be watching out. What was the name of that show again? It was
called the Pot Winds.
The
Pot
Pot
Winds.
Twins.
It was based on a series that was on the internet, and it's quite good actually. Kevin Sorbo plays my son, and I always thought I was a little too young for the part, of course, because Kevin is well, he's close to my age. Let's be honest with it. No, he's not. He's charming. What a charming guy. So if you like Kevin Sorbo and you like me and you want to laugh, watch The Potwins on Amazon Prime.
Okay. Well, thank you
So,
so much for your time.
thank
We
you. I
we
had a
love
good
you so
time.
much, Uncle Barry. So
Well, I love you too. And yeah, just ask holiness. All right. I think we've
oh,
talked
his
about
ass holiness. Excuse me.
my holiness. Have
Thank you
fun.
so much.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. I'm sorry we can't see each other in person this year, but next year we'll be there.
Next time for sure.